What?
Barstool Wayne State.
Yes, sir.
Who did that?
I don't know.
Direct affiliate with Barstool.
It's like the fourth attempt in.
Barstool Wayne State.
Whoa.
That
Yes, sir.
goes.
Okay. Yeah, I just came across it a few days ago, but I think it just got started in January, so it'd be like what the fourth or fifth barstool attempt for Wayne State in the past 10 plus years.
I mean, hopefully something finally damn takes off.
It'd be nice. It'd be a welcome change.
Yeah.
Did they actually post something good?
No, I just saw him in the DMs.
Oh, gotcha.
All right, I am going to share.
It is done.
Almost there.
Okie dokie.
Ready if you are.
Indeed.
Make sure my mic is right. I think it is. Pixelbud speaker, Yeti mic. Cool.
Cool beans.
Hello and welcome to the Warrior House podcast, where Warrior Pride lives. I'm your host, Ryan Reingart, joined by my co-host, Mike Sangster. Thank you for joining us on episode 88 of the Warrior House podcast. Long weekend, Sangster. Very
A
busy
little bit of
weekend.
a little bit of a long weekend. And I was gonna open this episode of the podcast trying to explain why Wayne State men's basketball is the greatest basketball team in the history of, the well, at least this season, even in Division One, but it doesn't feel right to go through the transitive property after last Monday.
No, because the fake Chris Dunbar, or so we think, was posting something up about that. I know you had some comments on that one. That was funny. Just seeing
Yeah,
that like the this team beat that team, that team, and that team beat Duke, and like
yes.
doing that whole thing.
Yeah, basically it all starts with Michigan Tech beat Green Bay, and well, Wayne State beat Michigan Tech, but Wayne State also beat U of D, who in turn beat Green Bay, who down the line beat Duke. But it doesn't
Um,
feel right because, spoiler alert, Wayne State lost to Roosevelt.
yeah, so we got to get into that one a little bit. We got to talk about that one, but yeah, Sangster, we have a lot of
Oh.
good things that happened over the last week to talk about,
A
and this
loaded
second
baked
half.
potato.
Yeah, two probably, to be honest with you. So let's start out our women's basketball team. So we talked about them on the last episode. We mentioned that they had a very, very big opportunity ahead of them. to be able to climb in the standings. And unfortunately, they didn't make the most of it. But we're going to start out on a happy note. Back on Thursday, they headed up to Saginaw Valley, and Wayne State won that game 71-68. And then looking at the standings, of course, I mean, Saginaw Valley, Roosevelt, the one we'll talk about in a minute. Those were two games that this team had to go out and win. And they started out on a really good note. I don't know if you got that box score pulled up there, Sangster, but it's what we wanted.
Yeah, a little bit of a close game, especially Saginaw Valley. Actually, let's start at the beginning. Wayne State comes out on fire. They start out 22-7, and then the second and third quarters, Saginaw Valley really tightens it up. They outscore Wayne State by 8 points in the second and outscore them by 14 in the third. Then finally, Wayne State managed to turn it back on, come out, win this game. They outscored Saginaw Valley 24-14 in the fourth to pull this one out. But it got a little dicey in the middle of the game. I have to freely admit that I listened for the first quarter. I think I shut it off to listen to something else. And the final score was not indicative of what I had thought was going to happen in this game.
Yeah, and looking at some of the stats here, I mean, the usual, slightly high on turnovers, not crazy high, but like you look at some of these shooting percentages that we had, pretty good game, but also Saginaw Valley also had a pretty good game from the field. Made a lot of things happen there. Shea Tripp, Gabby Luchka, McKenna Ferguson were, the three highest scorers for Wayne State. Nobody really in the double doubles, but I mean, by and large, they played a decent game. But like you said, in the middle of the game there, Saginaw Valley kind of turned it on and made Wayne State sweat a little bit. Thank goodness for a pretty big fourth quarter from Wayne State. I mean, putting up 24 points in that fourth quarter, that's what they needed to do in order to win that one. So, and I know I wasn't able to watch this one. I had other things going on at the time. So I thought about it afterwards and looked it up. Very happy to see Wayne State get a win in this one, though.
Yeah, but on the flip side, well, yeah, I don't think there's anything else really from this game aside from that. Wayne, like you said, Wayne State had a really excellent game. They were 50% from the 3-point line, about 51% from the field overalls, 78% from the free throw line. So overall, a good game for Wayne State offensively. Defensively, you'd like to see them lock in a little bit. Unfortunately, it did not go that way in the game against Roosevelt. Uh, I think that the stat of the day here, 1 for 13 from beyond the 3-point line.
Yeah.
That is not a recipe for winning basketball games.
No, it's not. It really isn't. I mean, the highlight of this game is Shea Tripp. I mean,
Yes.
she put up 12 for 16 from the field. By the way, she made the one and only 3-pointer for Wayne State on her one and only 3-point attempt. Put up 4 for 5 at the free throw line, 8 rebounds in there, a couple of assists to go with it, 3 steals. So she showed up. She was ready to go. The rest of the team, I don't know what happened there. I don't know if they took an ice bath before the game, but they were cold and they could not make anything. And it's one of those, you end up having that bad of a day from the field to call it what it is, and you only lost by 4. So that means like you didn't really have to have an amazing day to go out and take down Roosevelt. Our stats and like what's gone on in the GLIAC so far could have told us that. But there's a perfect example of that even, looking down at Roosevelt, they shot 22% from the field. I'm sorry, from the 3 and 40% from the field, did under 70% from the free throw line. They didn't have a great game. We just had an even less greater game.
No, and Wayne State had their opportunity to win this one. We were watching together, at least in the fourth quarter. This game was tied 62-62 with about 98 seconds left, and missed 2 shots, turned the ball over in the final 3 possessions, and Roosevelt pulls it out. And it sucked.
Yeah.
It straight up, it sucked to watch.
Yeah, I mean, you put it really well. Like weird things happen in that very, very middle school looking gymnasium on a Monday night. And boy, if there's if there's one thing I'm going to credit Wayne State on, we have an amazing facility when compared to most D2. But watch the Roosevelt one. It's a little bit rough sledding. But one of the things, I mean, again, turnovers 21 for Wayne State in this one. That's a high number. It's not so bad if the other team doesn't cash in on it. Roosevelt cashed in on it. They got 24 points off turnover. So over a point per turnover, right where you want to be if you're looking to win games. That's the mark you're kind of looking for and Roosevelt did it. So again, I'll say it. I don't. Roosevelt didn't have a great game, but they did everything that they needed to do in order to win a game where Wayne State didn't have a good game, and it stinks because this was the weekend to really move some things along and really, really get yourself into the top, probably the top four, at least tied for the top four, and it just didn't happen.
Yep, and we'll get into it to the GLIAC standings in the next half of the podcast. But we'll move on now to Wayne State men's basketball, and just like the women, they had a big opportunity to climb in the standings, and unfortunately, they couldn't make it happen either. For whatever reason, this team cannot just get over that 500 mark over a weekend. Well, again, we'll start out with
or under it for the record. Like, boy, they
yeah.
are smack dab on 500 across the board.
Yeah, we'll clarify that. I would much rather be 500 than under 500. But man, I wish they could just take that next step to get over the hump.
Yeah.
But starting out, they had some good news. Thursday at Saginaw Valley, big win for Wayne State, 81-69. Oh, awkward. I didn't know if I lost you.
That's okay. I'm still here. Well, for those watching on YouTube, we'll cut that out here.
Hey.
Yeah,
yeah.
big one for that one. I mean, Saginaw Valley coming into that one, they're lower than Wayne State in the standings. We talked about them being a team that was chasing Wayne State, and they're coming into this game on their home court trying to get this one. Couldn't make it happen. Believe it or not, Sangster, Rob Lee Jr., Carmelo Harris both put up over 20 points piece in this game. They're the ones that we continue to look to, and it's just like maybe it's not so much that we're looking to them; they're just making their shots happen, and when they get a chance, they're knocking the shots down. I mean, collectively between the two of them, right around 50%, maybe a little bit under 50% from the field, and a scooch under 50% from the 3-point line, and they did some damage at the free throw line. So I mean, really not much for me to complain about there.
No, not at all. And the one thing I really liked from this one is that we saw Carmelo Harris get his points in this game alongside Rob Lee. I feel like for whatever reason this season, we've always called out Rob Lee. We've called out Tamario Adley. We've seen Carmelo come into these games, have good games, but maybe not to the record-setting levels that Rob Lee and Tamario are having. But this was a good one for Carmelo, I think.
It really was. 12 turnovers total for the team. Not too bad. We're able to force 20 turnovers from Saginaw Valley, and Wayne State gets 26 points off those turnovers. So everything you want to have happen happened. Well, you wanted the win, and it was a pretty good win. The team looked good relatively across the board from all the stats that I can see. Again, this was one I wasn't able to watch live. So they did what they had to do, get that first win, get an extended weekend before you have to take a road trip out to Chicago to take on Roosevelt. And unfortunately, this follows the exact same pattern as what happened to the women's basketball team, which is the men's team goes out there and they lose 83-90. So keeping along with that 500 record, Sangster, it's something I really would like to see to stop being the case for the rest of this season. Rob Lee Jr., Carmelo Harris, both getting 20 points piece in this game as well. They're showing up. They're not really doing the team collectively isn't really doing anything bad on repeat. Like they're just some of these games, they show up against these other teams and these other teams kind of like start shooting the ball really well, or they just find something that they're able to do. I mean, a guy from Roosevelt puts up 31 points. Oh yeah, by the way, their second leading scorer put up 22. So I don't really know what to make of this one. It was a real bummer to watch this one live, though.
Yeah, it's a shame that I think that Wayne State let it get as close as it did. And maybe that's just because I don't know what to make of Roosevelt as an institution yet. But it's not a game that they should have lost. And yeah, other GLIAC teams have lost to Roosevelt, but I don't like that Wayne State is losing to Roosevelt. And on top of that, I think it's a pattern that we've seen that Wayne State's defense I'm not going to say every game, but in a lot of games, and it's these weird ones too, where it's not the quote unquote top opponents. It's these ones that are under Wayne State where they're just shooting the lights out over Wayne State. I mean, you tell me that Wayne State scores 83 points in a game. I'm going to tell you that, you know what, they're probably winning that game. But guess what? Roosevelt scored 90.
Yeah.
Giving up 90 points in a conference game when you need to move up, it's just it can't happen. And sure enough, Roosevelt shot the lights out, especially it felt like in the last 2, 3 minutes that Wayne State might have had a mistake, missed shot, turnover, something like that, but Roosevelt just comes out, drains a corner three. And guess what? It happens again. Roosevelt drains another corner three.
Yeah.
Craziness in
Yeah.
this.
I mean, you give me 47% from the field, 40% from the three. Give me a little bit better than 65% from the free throw range. 11 turnovers, a little higher than I'd like to see for the men's basketball team, but I'll take it. And we're going to win a good amount of games. And
Yeah,
especially if you just gave me those numbers and like you said, Sanks, you're like, show me that and then tell me you're going to go play Roosevelt with those numbers, you're probably going to win. Unfortunately, Roosevelt put up damn near 50% from the 3-point line. So they drained 13 of those and it was enough. So
yep.
I really wish I was hoping at least one of these teams would be able to sweep the weekend. I was definitely hoping that both would, but like at the very least, it was like one of them has to do it, and they both couldn't make it happen. This is a real bummer. So both of our basketball teams come out of this away extended weekend with a 1-1 conference record. Not exactly the way that you want it, but again, um, we got more opportunities to climb in the standings. I don't think a ton of damage was done because we didn't get both of these wins. We'll have to see how that plays out, though. I might eat my words.
Right. Next up, a little bit, actually a lot bit better news for Wayne State Athletics. The women's track and field team was out at the GVSU Big Meet on Friday and Saturday. There were no team scores in this one. We're just going to assume that Wayne State would have won if score was kept because why not? Uh, Big things were happening in this one. Several school records were set. First by Emily Gordon. She broke her own record from 2 years ago by 3 seconds in the 800-meter run. Fun fact, she also earned GLIAC Track Athlete of the Week. No stranger to uh, setting school records. Reagan Justice beat her own school record in indoor track and field in the 5,000-meter, 5 kilometer run from last year by 5 whole seconds. And then on that same Saturday, Elise Miller, Mackenzie Wellner, Renee Kutsha, and Avery Wilson set their own, well, they broke their own uh, school record in the 4x400-meter relay by 0.08 seconds. It was three of the four competitors set that same record last year.
Yeah, and then the last one on there was Emily Gordon, Renee Kucha, Rachel Felstow, and Taylor Hopkins set a school record for the distance medley relay. And of course, I had to be like, all right, well, what's the distance medley relay? It's a combination of four different runs. It's a 1,200-meter leg, there's a 400-meter leg, an 800-meter leg, and then the final runner is a 1,600-meter leg. So it's all four of them combined into one. Track and field just has some very, very fun events sometimes where it just feels like put some stuff together, let them all compete as a team. And of course, there's some strategy in there. So really good stuff. I mean, seeing a lot of repeat names when it comes to setting some school records. Emily Gordon, especially as you mentioned, was good enough for GLIAC Track Athlete of the Week. So that's a really good thing going into their final event this coming week before they get into conference championships, which we will talk about that tune-up event in the second half of this episode. So one of the teams, thanks to that, I was very, very excited about this weekend was the Wayne State men's tennis team, and they were heading over to Cleveland, Ohio, for a couple events. The first one being against Case Western Reserve. Wayne State ended up winning that one 6-1. So again, 6 matches they won, and one of them, Case Western was able to win. That same day, Wayne State took on Northwestern Ohio, which I believe they're like top 10 in D3 on the regular. They're a pretty high up their team.
And
They,
NAI.
NAIA, that's right. Yeah. But they're always way up there. Just one of those schools that has a good tennis program out of Lima, Ohio. Um, Definitely a little bit closer than we would like to see, but nonetheless, we got out of that one with a win, and that's what we can hope for. The one that I was really excited about, and I'm so bummed about this, was what happened on Sunday, and it was supposed to be in Toledo, except it didn't happen. It ended up getting postponed because I think Toledo wanted to stay home. And I just kind of thought it would have been
Fair.
interesting. Yeah, it would have been interesting to head down to Toledo to see this one. Don't know if I was actually going to end up making it down there or not, but we have a pretty good recent history against Toledo, and they're as we mentioned, they were a team I think coming into this one they were 2-4, so a D1 opponent. We've had pretty decent success against these last few seasons, and selfishly, I like heading down just over the border into Ohio and checking out Toledo and seeing our team compete against D1 teams. But this one didn't end up happening. It's slated to be rescheduled from last I've seen, but I mean, who knows with a cross division match if that'll actually end up happening.
Right. But a match that did happen against an Ohio team was the women's tennis team. On Saturday, they had a home match against Finley, which they won 4-3. Uh, this is going to be an interesting year for Wayne State tennis because we've touched on it a little bit, but you've got a mixture of players that have been around Wayne State a while, but you've also got some newcomers in this one. So I think that a big thing here is that Wayne State won all of their uh, doubles matches with some fresh faces, I'd say. Uh, the big one, it seems like a lot of well, our doubles teams, looking at them right now as they're set, the number two team of Malik Arafat and Shanice Weeks, they're the only ones that well, they're not. They're the only ones I think that they competed together. If you look at number one is Anis Rusine and Dea Gorgidze, I don't think they competed together last year. And then number three, Justine Boilu, and our new player Shantala. I'm not even gonna try the last name for right now, but she transferred in from Walsh. That's a new team as well. So good stuff from them. All of them got their doubles points. Little dicey in the singles competition, but Wayne State still comes out with the win.
Yeah, and I guess I kind of like breezed a little bit past it. The Wayne State men's tennis team, seeing Cedric Drenth, of course, very name we're very familiar with, but George Day, seeing what he's been doing. I mean, in both of his matches, he won pretty comfortably, and that's good to see a lot of really new names on that team, and they're trending in a crazy high direction right now. So fantastic to see. Women's tennis team, I think, is going to do a lot of the same things. I know the Finley women's tennis team is, generally pretty solid from what I can recall. But yeah, good stuff from them. Very excited to see what we have coming up because we're talking about them and every other team here in the second half in just a couple of minutes. So last but not least, thanks to the team that was probably the busiest this weekend was the Wayne State softball team. And something must have happened for this weekend series because it got moved up. At first, we had a lot of these softball games happening on Saturday, and they got moved to Friday. And the softball team played one less game than they were supposed to. So I don't know what happened, but at any rate, on Friday they took on Kentucky Wesleyan. Wayne State ended up winning that one 7-0. And then the other two also on Friday at Lincoln Memorial. Keep in mind, Lincoln Memorial is ranked number 28 coming into this game, and they won that game 8-7. So pretty close against a highly ranked team. Good to see that. Kind of wish they would have been able to play that second game against them. They were not able to, though. And then last but not least, closing out Friday, the Wayne State softball team took on Davis and Elkins, and Wayne State won that one 11-6. So finishing it out, a road trip, probably a little bit more of like a neutral site. But regardless, it was not at our home site. Wayne State wins two of those three games. So to me, a very good start to the season for them. What's even cooler, Sangster, is who got the GLIAC Softball Player of the Week is none other than Caitlin Dewitt for the Wayne State softball team. New name for us. She's a freshman. And over the Friday series of those three games, she went 8 for 12, 6 runs scored, 10 RBIs, got 4 extra base hits, which includes a home run. Pretty impressive for her very first regular season weekend on a college team as a freshman, got conference player of the week. I don't have the stats in front of me to find out the last time that happened, but that is impressive and very exciting and definitely a boost that softball team needs.
Yeah, great way to start a Wayne State career, and great for this team to start out like they have. Looking to some past seasons, they have started out fairly well, And we know that the real test is going to be going into the rest of these non-conference games, getting into the GLIAC season. But hey, you've got your foundation. You come out of your first road trip with a winning record, and it's just time to get this season started.
Yeah, excited for that. But yeah, shout out Kalen to it. That's an awesome thing. Amazing for a freshman to come in and just immediately have the confidence of, I'm at a college level now. I can do this. Yeah, you did it. 3 straight
Yep.
games, you did it. So really excited to see what happens there. All right, Sangster. We need to take a break. We need to take a breath because we have, I don't know, just about every varsity sport to talk about here in the second half, probably with the exception of like football and volleyball and golf. I think we're talking about every single other sport. So, with
That's sure what
that,
it feels like.
yeah, so we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back to talk about all of it. Nice. Yeah, that was a lot of sports.
Joe Sports.
All right, what do I got? We got a pretty good amount. I guess I can just pull up some stats really quick. I don't know how much the stats really.
Swimming World, is that on?
What's up?
Swimming World set on.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, we'll pull up our basketball. Yeah.
Yeah, I think basketball stats be the big one.
Softball's a little early to tell.
Just a scooch. I'll be looking at conference only stats just to make it easy.
Oh yeah.
Man, that Grand Valley margin is wow. 34.8 average margin. That's not even just for victories. That's for including the 2 games that they've lost in conference play. But they've only lost 1 in conference.
Yep. They just
Yes.
lost.
Yeah, to Parkside.
The Danger
Indeed.
Rangers.
Okay, got some stats pulled up. We're looking at Grand Valley and Davenport. Cool. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Whenever you're ready.
DCFC. Okay.
And we're back. Deep breath. Lots of sports. We'll start out, Sangster. The team that's going to be the busiest this week is the Wayne State women's and men's swimming and dive teams. They are heading out to Holland, Michigan. It's GLIAC championship time. Hard to believe because it feels like swimming and dive season just started, and I think I've made it to 1 swimming and dive event this season. So a little bit of a bummer there, but so yes, our teams are heading out there. In the country, the Wayne State men's swimming and dive team is ranked number 21, and the women's are ranked 19. So pretty highly ranked teams. Kind of thinking about how they rank in comparison to some of our GLIAC competition. The men are the 4th highest ranked GLIAC team in the country, and the women are 3rd. So to me, a top 3 finish in conference championships for both of these teams would be honestly probably a little bit of a cause for celebration. I really don't think a second place finish is that far fetched for some of these teams. I mean, thinking about the fact that, we know Grand Valley is one of those top teams. We know Northern Michigan is up there, but we've also competed against Northern Michigan, this season. And I know we match up pretty well against them. But the one thing that changes all of that is this is neutral site now. This is not, your familiar building, your familiar routine of get up, say goodbye to your roommate, and then head on down to the event. Like this is a little bit different. So I do think there's a chance that one of our teams can possibly steal that second place in the conference.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see. And it's just a testament to, for whatever reason, the schools in the north and in the GLIAC are really good at swimming. I guess because you can do it inside when the weather's cold out here. But yeah, to say that, both teams are essentially top 20 in the country and they're like maybe a middle team in the conference. That's almost crazy to say, but it's the reality of competing in the GLIAC. The upside of that is kind of no matter what happens, you're going to expect that, uh, as long as nothing crazy happens, that these teams are going to be uh, moving on into the NCAA.
Regionals.
Yeah, regional. So
Yeah, I would certainly think so. And I happened to just look it up. So the women's team did take on Northern Michigan. And I'm only focusing on Northern Michigan because I think for both men and women, I think they're number 2 in the GLIAC right now. The men's
gotcha.
team did beat Northern Michigan the one time that we faced off against them earlier in the season, and that was in the Mathi. The women did not win against Northern, but nonetheless, familiar opponent there. So they're the ones that I'm kind of really focusing on there. But best of luck to our swimming and dive teams as they head out to Holland, Michigan for the GLIAC Championship. Hoping for definitely some podium finishes, maybe a little bit over just a podium finish. So let's move on, Sang. So we got the women's basketball team. They are currently at 15-9 overall, 10-6 in the GLIAC. Really wish we could be 11-5. Didn't happen, but we got a couple opportunities this week. And we got a real tough one to start out with. We get to head to probably the hardest place to play in all of D2 women's basketball, which is taking on Grand Valley, currently at 25-2 overall, 15-1 in the conference, and it's on their home court. Really, really tough place. And if I can throw one more thing in there, Grand Valley is fresh off a loss against Parkside. So they're probably not all enthusiastic right now, and they're probably very excited to get back out on the court and try to beat whoever that next team is that's coming to play them, and it's Wayne State.
Yeah, tough spot for Wayne State to be in right now. But the flip side of that is right now Grand Valley has, excuse me, they have they're the first team to clinch a postseason home court advantage. Right now, they're still the number 1 seed. They've still got quite a bit of distance between them and the next team, which is Northern Michigan. So right now, Grand Valley is 15-1. Northern is 12-4. So notice there's 4 more games left to play. Man, you kind of wish that Northern Michigan had lost one more game. Maybe Grand Valley is thinking about putting it in cruise control. Maybe not. I would like to think that they're going to come out with their best, but hey, something's got to explain that game against Parkside, who themselves are just ahead of Wayne State as well at 11-5. Finish it off. Ferris State is 11-5. Wayne State, as you mentioned, is 10-6. They're still the last team to clinch a spot in the GLIAC tournament. Right behind them now is Roosevelt. I'm sure that Michigan Tech wasn't too happy about Roosevelt's win. Roosevelt is 8-8. Michigan Tech is 7-9. And last up is Saginaw Valley at 6-10. Those are, if it were to start today, your GLIAC women's basketball tournament contenders. Kind of at the bottom is Davenport, Lake Superior State, Purdue Northwest. Wayne State's played their 2 games. Nope, not yet, because we've got Davenport coming up. But tough one against Grand Valley.
Yeah, it is.
Any way to mince words about it.
Just looking at the standings a little bit, you're right. We are 1 game out of that 4th and 3rd seed for what it's worth. Like,
yeah,
we can loop that one right into it. And I just, we only got 2 weekends left of GLIAC regular season basketball. And, the 2 teams above us, Ferris State and Parkside, they have a little bit of a tough slate coming down the stretch. I mean, we at least get a shot against Ferris State on our court. So I know we won't talk too much about next week quite yet, but there are opportunities remaining. But yeah, it's this is a really tough one to start on. I mean, you go out there, you do everything you can to win, but there's no hiding or shying away from the fact that Grand Valley's probably the best in D2, if not number 2. So a real tough one there. But you also mentioned Davenport. Wayne State gets to take on Davenport, who is 6-18 overall, and they are 4-12 in the conference. And to be honest with you, it kind of seems like their postseason hopes are hanging on a little bit by a thread. They need to make some things happen in these last few weeks. And you know, and they're looking at this Wayne State team. They're like, hey, we got a shot on our home court to go and beat a team that's above us. Well, that's what we have to do. So you hope that doesn't happen. You hope Wayne State that, you know, regardless of what happens against this game against Grand Valley, that we head to Davenport and do, as we say, what needs to happen this week. And that is win at least one of these games. And we're eyeballing that Davenport one.
Yeah, a win over Grand Valley will be nice. We know that they came close last year on the road at Grand Valley. It's not unheard of. But following it up, that no matter what happens in that Grand Valley game, no matter if it's the high of winning it, the low of losing it, you gotta come right back out and handle business against Davenport on their home court.
Yep, spot on, Sangster. So, I mean, really quick things. Grand Valley leads in offense. Grand Valley leads in defense. They lead in margin. They're just a very good team across the board. Davenport, they're they're not putting up the numbers on the offensive side. Defensively, they leave a little bit to be desired in the conference play. So that leads to them not having a great overall margin when it comes to all their games. So, I mean, that's why I'm saying like that's the one that we kind of look forward and just say like no matter what happens that we have to make sure that that game goes our way. So that's what we got for the women's basketball team. Men's basketball team, Sangster, what do we got?
Well, it's familiar.
Are they 500?
Yeah, they are 500. I feel like that should be a Twitter account. Is Wayne State men's basketball 500? Yes, no. They are 12-12, 8-8 in conference play. And guess what? Unlike the women's team, this Grand Valley game that they got feels like it's got to be a must win because Grand Valley comes in at 13-11, 9-7. They're right above you. Wayne State, I am blanking on the game that they had against Grand Valley at the field house earlier in the season. Nevertheless, Grand Valley is right above them right now.
Yeah, Grand Valley men's team, they beat Wayne State 74-70 back at the field house. I'm sorry. Never mind. I'm looking at last season. I was looking at it because I keep saying that we're giggling about like, is the Wayne State men's basketball team 500? I mean, last year overall in conference, they were below 500. So it's one of those trending in a very good direction. So I wanted to look that one up really quick. But talking about I mean, the case is the same. Grand Valley men did beat Wayne State men's basketball team back on December 7th. Very, very early conference game. That was a 65-63 game. So we got to circle that one as the men's team and say, let's get them back a little bit. And let's make sure, if nothing else, we split the season series.
Yeah, and these two teams seem very similar. If you look at the overall margin, Grand Valley is just above Wayne State at 0.8. Wayne State is 0.5. So both teams are like smack dab in the middle of well, not only of the standings, but in how they score against their opponents so far. I think it all just boils down to you had a bad game at Roosevelt. How do you respond? You got to go on the road. You got to beat Grand Valley, something that they have done. It doesn't feel like it's been too long since Wayne State has had a win against them, but it's certainly not the same Grand Valley teams, same men's Grand Valley teams that we've seen in years past with there was that guy Van Tubergen that was the brother of the backup Wayne State quarterback when they were really rolling. But it's still Grand Valley. It's still a great day to get a win against them.
Yeah, it is. And then similarly, as we talk about the Grand Valley women's basketball team coming off a loss against Parkside, we're coming off a game that we kind of feel like we should have been able to win, which was against Roosevelt. So we got that. We got a little bit of that feeling still. And I hope the team definitely does think about that because that's fuel to be able to go and win a very big game when honestly, this one is huge because that helps us climb up in the conference standings a little bit. And then after that, I don't think we need to sit on this game too much. Sangster on Saturday, the men's team takes on Davenport. Davenport men's team is 5-19 overall, 1-5, 1-15 in the conference. I don't even need to look at the stats for this one. I mean, this is all eyes should be on that Thursday game against Grand Valley because we need that one. And then after that, again, regardless of what happens, similar to the women's basketball team, because we're in the thick of a conference race right now and nothing is guaranteed, The women's team is going for a top 4 seed. The men's team is pushing for it's looking like they're going to be a conference team. I don't think there's much of a chance, knock on wood, that they don't at least get into the tournament, but they need to continue to stack up these wins to try to get a little bit closer to that middle of the, number 4, number 5 seed, something like that. And they can make that happen with 2 wins this weekend. And it's not that far fetched to think it can happen. I really do believe that there's a good chance that they come back with 2 wins.
Yeah, I can certainly see it, especially against that Davenport team. Again, you can't overlook it, especially because it's on their home court, but it's a must win for Wayne State. Not just because it's Davenport that they're not having a great season right now. It's because the 2 teams behind them, right now, Wayne State is the 7th spot in the tournament. Your 8th spot right now is Saginaw Valley at 5-11 in conference play. Guess what? Roosevelt is 5-11 as well. They're right within spitting distance of Wayne State. And guess what? Roosevelt has that tiebreaker over Wayne State. So if Roosevelt manages to string some games together and Wayne State falters a little more, watch out, things get dicey. The good thing is Wayne State does have uh, that season series win over Saginaw Valley with the win last week and at the end of January.
Yeah. So, a little bit of thin floor under them, but I think there's a little bit of room. They just got to handle some business this weekend. So, good luck
Definitely
to
more
our,
room than last year
yes, yeah,
so far.
exactly.
4 games.
So that's what we got for the basketball teams as they head out west. Best of luck. Really, really hoping for, uh, a couple of wins for the men's basketball team. Hopefully a couple for the women's basketball team as well. Definitely a tough slate for them. The softball team is also in action. They are currently 2-1 overall. As we just talked about the first half, they started out their season in wherever they were. I can't remember exactly.
Oh, no.
Cleveland. Thank you. No, that wasn't
Nope,
Cleveland.
that was 10.
Anyway, so the
Away.
softball team
Warm.
heads to Romeoville, Illinois for the Lewis Indoor Tournament. We've talked about this one for a couple years now. Starting out on Friday of this week, the softball team takes on Bemidji State. Friday afternoon, they got St. Cloud State, and then rolling into Saturday, they take on the host team, Lewis, and then closing it out Saturday night. I think that's a 9 p.m. game, actually, against Minnesota Duluth. So 4 more opportunities for this team. And after what happened last week, could we not keep our eye on Caitlin DeWitt? I mean, can she continue to be clutch at the back? Can she continue to get our team off to a really good start and just help this whole team be like, all right, we're different this year. We got some players. We got the energy going right now. Can we continue to do that? Cool. The cool thing about softball, Sangster, I will say, is that and I think it's the same with baseball, is that a lot of these double headers and back-to-back double headers happen. So they play a lot of games really fast. So if you have a bad game and they're like the Wayne State baseball team did, I think they lost like 17-0, 17-1, one of their first games. They didn't have to sit around for a week and wait for the next game. They had to sit around for like a lunch break and then go out there and play again. So that's kind of cool about it. And it allows you to not dwell too much on the losses. Flip side, if you're winning, you can continue to rattle off a lot of these wins, as we saw the softball team nearly took down basically a top 25 team in the country, only ended up losing that one by 1. They were able to go and make that happen. Just they're in the middle of just performing really well. So hopefully that continues this weekend.
Yeah, it'd be really great for this softball team to get a truly strong start to the season. Starting out 2-1, great. How can you continue it in your next road series? And as we go through these winter months into GLIAC play, it's going to happen sooner rather than later. At this point, it's almost March now. So this is the foundation of your season, and best of luck to them in Romeoville. Next up, the men's tennis team. They are 3-0, including 1 Division II game against UIndy. We'll be seeing the tennis rankings coming out probably on February 19th. I'd expect that Wayne State is going to be up there. They've been a consistent team over the past few seasons, certainly off to a good start now, especially with all the roster turnover that we've talked about ad nauseum. But it's the reality for them right now. So on Friday at 2:00, they've got a home game, home match in the Duchesne Center against Findlay. Actually, they've got a whole series at home in the Duchesne Center. No, next. Wow. I saw versus in the notes and I messed up. So they get one home game against Findlay on Friday. Then they go on the road to Midland against Northwood, a former GLIAC opponent. And then on Sunday they go to Kalamazoo and they face another Division One opponent. Now their first one of the season, the Western Michigan Broncos.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one. I can't remember if we've played Western Michigan in tennis before. Like I know we played Toledo recently, but and maybe Eastern Michigan. I could also be making that up, but this definitely feels like the first time we've played Western Michigan, and at least the last couple of years that we've been following our teams very closely as part of the podcast.
I'm very curious now because I kind of like Western Michigan, but I'm gonna look that up. But
Well, yeah, while you're looking that up, one of the things, so the women's tennis team is on break this week. And I just started kind of thinking a little bit like it feels like the men's tennis team is playing a lot of games, matches. We keep going back and forth between games and matches. It just feels like the women's tennis team is a very spaced out schedule. Like as we get closer to, I want to say early March, their season starts to pick up quite a bit, versus the men's team kind of really packs a lot of games in here. So I don't know if that's by design. I don't know if we tried to get some scheduling in there for the women's team. It just didn't end up working out. I don't know what the situation is there, but it just definitely got me a little bit curious about what their scheduling looks like. And, if if we just generally don't schedule as many, or like I said, if something fell through there. So, but nonetheless, a lot of really good opportunities here for the men's tennis team. And what'd you find, Sangster?
unfortunately, I don't have an answer. They don't organize. Well, not that it's not here. The
Yeah,
answer that I
fair
need
enough.
is not here.
But we tried and it
Yeah.
just didn't work out. And that's okay. So, at any rate, good luck to the men's tennis team. Really excited. These top two guys that we have on this team are fantastic. And I know, a number of the other guys out there, we're going to be looking for a lot of team effort here because 3 straight days with some traveling involved in there is definitely going to be a bit of an undertaking. But, very excited to see what they do there. The track and field team, we kind of talked about them. They are doing some crazy good things right now. As they get ready for GLIAC conference championships, they're heading up on Friday to University Center for the SVSU tune-up. This is a thing that normally happens, the week before conference, where a number of different schools can go up to this event, and it's really their last uh, competitive action before we get into championships. So I looked for a little bit I learned a little bit about some provisional stuff, saying so I didn't actually realize that there were set times that the NCAA set for divisions, for men's and women's competition and all that. I stumbled upon that. What I didn't find is the list of who from Wayne State has set provisional times. I know it's throughout a couple of different events that have happened over the season. I didn't end up finding that. But what I did find is for the SVSU tune-up, in the article of the Wayne State athletics article, that is, of the 13 events that Wayne State is likely to participate in, 3 of those events, Wayne State has set a school record this season alone. So that's a lot, and there's still opportunity to do more. And I know, I think over the last 2 seasons, we set some records as well, but it just goes to like this team is really, really something else right now. And, excited to see if they get some more opportunities here and set a few more records, beat some personal bests, or like we keep seeing, like athletes break their own records that they set. So cool stuff.
Yeah, and especially because we'll talk about it I think a little bit next week, but you're running into GLIAC indoor championships. It's one where, despite Wayne State not having an indoor facility, as we talk about ad nauseum, Wayne State has performed very well in these indoor events. This year's looking like a really good year. This is the last chance for them to set some times before GLIAC championships. Well, I know that that's going to be our focus next week, but don't overlook this one. Maybe we'll set some more records here.
For sure. So 2 more sports to go. Well, I guess technically 3. So fencing, Sangster. We got our men's fencing team is currently ranked number 19 in the country, and that women's team is ranked number 35 in the country. That those rankings are based on D1, D2, and D3. Like everybody's kind of collectively thrown together, and that's how the rankings work out there. So this men's team is looking pretty good. So Friday and Saturday, this is a very, very exciting event. Wayne State hosts. We are hosting the Central Collegiate Fencing Conference Championships, and this is mostly, I think, for the basically the Midwest region, if I'm not mistaken. And maybe there's another region in there. I can't really remember, but we've talked about them enough
This is
times that.
this is the fencing conference that we're in. So because
Oh,
yeah. So like think about, we have GLIAC for D2 for everything. This is the specific fencing conference in Division 1 that Wayne State is a part of, alongside Cleveland State, Detroit Mercy, Northwestern, Ohio State, uh, and I'm looking at logos and I'm not great with logos. There's a
I
D
think Denison.
and an LU.
Then that's I can't remember. I wanted to say Liberty. I know it ain't Liberty, but
It's not
but
Liberty.
but at any rate, like when I was looking at the rankings, the I can't remember it off the top of my head, the CFA, whatever it is.
Yeah.
They call out the regions for each of those. So a lot of the Midwest schools, as you just mentioned, are part of this conference championship. So
Yep.
Ohio State, Northwestern, probably Notre Dame. So the big schools, I mean, the ones that we're very familiar with that do very well. And yeah, I mean, the Midwest has some pretty good ones, but yeah, there's a couple of schools in there that I was like, oh, Denison. Couldn't tell you where that is, but I know that they have a fencing program just because of talking about this. So,
Yep.
um, but also, yes, the women's team is also involved in that. So, really cool. Again, as we were talking about, Wayne State gets to host this one. We assume it's going to be at the field house. I'm sure there's probably something official out there about this one.
It says math.
Oh, it doesn't say math. I just always wondered if it was going to be like that's the plan until unless otherwise noted, which is like maybe our basketball team won't be around. So, at any rate, still very cool that Wayne State gets to host this one.
Yep. And I mean, this is great for Wayne State because remember last year they were hosting the NCAA Midwest Regional a little bit later in the season, but this one is the conference championship. So second big fencing event for Wayne State in the past 2 years.
Yeah, sure is. So good luck to both of our teams as they get to stay home and compete in the Central Collegiate Fencing Conference Championships.
Rolls right off the tongue.
Sure does.
And last up, we got baseball. Right now they are 2-2. They have not begun conference play yet, but very early. But Wayne State is currently ranked fourth in the Midwest region uh, by the National Collegiate Baseball Writers Association. So they've got an afternoon doubleheader on Saturday in Mason, Ohio, against Ohio Dominican, former GLIAC opponent. And Ohio Dominican, they are not looking too hot right now. They are starting out 0-4 and 0-0. They haven't started playing the GMAC yet. Needless to say, they've gotten cooked. And then on Sunday afternoon, they get another afternoon doubleheader against, you guessed it, Ohio Dominican. I think this is going to be a big one for Wayne State. Man, if you can make Ohio Dominican start out, what, 0-8?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. That'd be crazy.
I mean, even if this ends up being a 3-1 series win for Wayne State, I mean, going down there and making sure you get, also side note, this is happening just outside of Cincinnati, like not that far outside. And Ohio Dominican is in Columbus or just a little bit outside of Columbus, if I'm not mistaken. So, don't exactly know
If
why
only
that
they,
is. I mean,
only they were
like
doing this game the next week.
yeah. The only thing I can think of is like, is the climate that much different down in Cincinnati or the field conditions? I don't exactly know, but that was kind of interesting that they're basically just heading down the road in Ohio to play outdoor baseball games anyway. So I mean, the whole reason I looked it up was like, this must be an indoor facility. Tis not. So
It's going to be a balmy 34 degrees on Saturday and a balmy 42 degrees on Sunday in Mason,
good
Ohio.
old good old baseball weather. So
Yes.
that's what we got for the baseball team, Sangster. They got a really good chance to get themselves above a 500 overall record. And all of these other teams we've talked about have some pretty good opportunities in front of them. Swimming and dive, we'll see what happens there. The fencing teams, we'll be definitely following along a little bit as they go. And then those basketball teams, I mean, they're the exciting ones on starting out the extended weekend on Thursday with some games out on the west side of the state. So really good stuff for them. A couple of home games here and there, but by and large, a lot of the teams are out and about this weekend. So Best of luck to all of them.
Another big weekend for Wayne State athletics.
Sure is. So next
Everyone
weekend,
gets
or
it.
I'm sorry, next week episode, I know is going to be a long one as well as we recap a lot of this. And hopefully we have a lot of good
Yep.
news to share. So with
That'd be
that,
nice.
Sangster, anything else we got?
That's it.
Alrighty. So with that, we appreciate everybody listening in on episode 88 of the Warrior House podcast.
And remember, it's always a great day to be a Wayne State Warrior.